the stream is running. Confirming. I believe that means the stream is up and running. Alright then, let me just set up my setup. Okay, let's head back into it. So last time, cool. Last time we had this mess. Yes. We were talking about the walking hives, or well, I was talking about the walking hive, and about law physiology. Yes. Let me immediately go on a tangent here, because I didn't explain about why they're called law. Well, there's not much of an explanation behind it, but basically I already have little bits of conlang called Hoyini. It's a conlang that I started from before I remade a whole bunch of things of the setting. So I'm not sure if the language will be relevant, but for now I've been using it for a lot of naming things. Just it wouldn't be what these people would call themselves. But anyway, so law is actually the plural. So in Hoyini, let me zoom in a bit further so that we have like this little area where we can just do what we want without having to worry about all of the other stuff and getting in the way. Okay, so basically the singular is law. So to make a basically in Hoyini, every word is made up out of syllables. I believe I should actually be able to easily find the whole syllabary. So here you've got the whole syllabary of Hoyini, including the written forms. It's written from bottom up, left to right. So, where's law? So here's law. Now, to make something a plural, I see that I've lost. All right, I need to set it up so the chat actually shows up. Not that I currently have any chat, but you know, still good to have them around in case anyone shows up. Okay, so as you can see, they're all a consonant in terms of sound, at least, or and a vowel. So it goes ha he hi ho hu, ha he hi ho hu, la le li lu lu, na ne ni nu nu, sa se si su su, sha she shi shu shu, sa se si su su, wa we we wo woo, ya ye yi you you. Now isn't that a fun soundbite? Now you might have noticed that law has basically two vowels in it, which seems like you wouldn't be able to represent it with this. However, if I just pull this up and move this over here so that I can actually reference it, because I don't actually know this off the top of my head. If I wanted to actually write law in the Hoyini script, I would write it as yeah, I would write it something like, why do I keep doing this? Like this. So this says law. So as you can see here, that means the end of a word, and that means the end of a sentence. So because this is the end, this is the full word and sentence, it's basically I terminated there. So this is also a quicker version. So basically, as you can see, I've picked the ho for the second one. That's because in Hyini, the H falls away if it's in the middle of a word. So that's how, for example, the observant among you might have noticed that it says here Shikilushoyathu, which is the Hyini word for this world, basically. So it's basically consistent of She, He, Lu, Sho, He, Ha, Thu. Those are the syllables in it. But because the H's are not, well, because the H's are not pronounced, it instead gets pronounced as She, He, Lu, Sho. Wait. Sho, yeah. She, He, Lu, Sho, Thu. Yeah. So that's a fun little linguistic lesson there. And the reason why it is is law. So law is the plural. So basically, to make a word plural in Hyini, you just add one of these. You basically copy the last vowel, in a sense. So if you wanted to say Shikilushoyathu in the plural, you would say Shikilushoyathu. So like that. With basically the last vowel kind of goes up. So it's like lo. Cool. So with that immediate tangent to set the scene, let's actually start doing what I believe I said I would do. Or might do. So previously we talked about law, the people of this world, and their physiology and all of that stuff. The video should still be around, hopefully without audio issues. By the way, I hope that the music is audible at the moment. Basically, I've just got this royalty free playlist running that I just found somewhere. I hope that is alright by YouTube, and also alright by you guys and gals. Cool. Alright. So sorry, I'm just thinking of how to continue from here, because there's a few things I can do. So, yeah, I believe I did talk a bit about law and stuff. Now, I should probably talk about this cultivation thing. Because, yeah, walking nests cultivate the language, the landscape around them. Let's actually go somewhere else. Let's dodge our previous work. Okay. Cultivation in quite a writing. All right. So this is one of the areas that I have not developed all that much quite yet. So I can't really just talk about what I've already established, occasionally world building in between. So this is probably going to be a lot more me trying to do some actual quantity world building. So the idea behind cultivation is basically, so you've got the region. You've got A7. This is not the actual shape of A7, but for now it will do. Do I actually have any pictures present? That's a. Yeah, it's probably good for me to go and give you a reminder of that's probably not actually the right one I should be doing. Probably show you guys this one. Whatever, it's fine. Alright. Let's move this over here so that it fits nicely and doesn't cover up the chat. Oh. How do I... Right. No. Oh boy. Alright, I just do it this way. Cool, and then I do Sky Realms. Zoom in some more. Okay, so that's way too big. Yeah, all of these are way too big. So this here is A7. It's too zoomed in, so I can't really write on here. Anyway, this here hexagon shape is Skyrim A7. Just so you guys have a reminder of where this is, in case you care about that sort of stuff. So yes, A7 is the home of the basically the ancestral home of the lore, and they've been created in a sense. Well, not so much created as shaped into what they will become by a walking nest. Now, this walking nest inhabits A7, and it's basically the I want to say soul walking nest of A7, but I think that there might be some smaller opportunistic ones around as well. But it's basically the main one. And yeah, so basically it lives there, and because it has this intuitive understanding that I discussed last time of basic genetics and such, it can basically go around and pick what kind of plants it does like, destroy what plants it doesn't like, and yeah, all that kind of good stuff, and manipulate the organisms in this area very much the same as it does its own member species. However, because they're not the member species, because it doesn't have as direct control over all of the species, the direct control over the evolutionary path of these beings is probably going to be significantly less. But think of it basically as, yeah, basically like a gardener or something like that. So like it goes around picking the ideal things and getting rid of the kinds of life that it doesn't like, and so it creates it shapes this ecosystem to be more ideal for itself, and therefore also, and probably also more efficient in general and less competitive. Of course, if there is a niche to be exploited, some creature is probably going to exploit it anyway. Because, like, the walking nest can try as much as it wants to shape things in the way that it wants to, but nature is also, you know, like normal evolutionary processes are still going to be continuing on regardless. Right. So yeah, there is going to be a kind of like tightrope battle between the walking nest and just natural development. Where basically, like, the walking nest is trying to shape the environment into something that is as ideal for itself as possible, and nature is of course doing what nature does best and working against that. Well, not necessarily against that. It's probably like it's receptive to the like the things that get made by the walking nest, but also anything that can be exploited for the gain of a species, that species will eventually develop to exploit, unless the walking nest can do something about that itself. It's kind of similar to what some humans try to do when they, for example, have to deal with invasive species. Okay, that was supposed to be a frog. Dumbest frog ever. But yeah, basically, yeah, humans try the same thing, right? Like, a creature shows up in an environment where it's not supposed to be, and humans will try and squash it. Because humans are not happy with invasive species being around. There we go, that's our invasive species. But invasive species don't really care. If they can avoid all of the measures that humans bring in the way, all the measures that humans can figure out to deal with them, then they're going to stay around, and they're going to get better and better at avoiding all of the measures that humans can put into place. And the same is going to be true for the walking nest. It's going to be able to... It's going to try and eliminate whatever it can that is not desirable to it. But it's only... Even though it is a creature of significant size, it's still only one superorganism. And... that works. And A7 is frankly quite large. So, I haven't explained this before, but basically on this map, each of these pixels is about 10 by 10 kilometers. I did the math on this at some point as to how big it is. Do I have that stored anywhere? Also, there's a bunch of reference material here that I've used and or modified. Some of this is artwork by other people who I've only used for personal reference. So I'm sorry if that is inappropriate. I don't really know how to deal with that live right now. Anyway, yeah, if that's your work and you disagree with that being shown or whatever, sorry, I'll try to do better. Cool. With that out of the way, I do not know how I have. You can tell that I'm very organized by the fact that I can't find anything. Let's see. Okay, around here somewhere, I believe it should say maybe. So this is how I've been doing most of the world building in the past. It's basically like Google Docs and just writing so much stuff. So here are a variety of the different places. Oh. Anyway, that's not relevant. I've really gone off track. I've completely forgotten what I was talking about. Right, yeah, it's huge. I forget how big it actually is. I did the calculations once, but I can't remember. But I mean, the fact that I can have a quick look at, like, if I tap that and do that. So like the height of it is like, oh wait, this is roughly like 90 pixels in length. So that is like 900. So yeah, from here to here is like 900 kilometers. Which is not an insignificant amount of distance. Not at all. So that's a very big area for this this walking nest to completely keep under control. So there is going to be natural life, and that is actually probably also why lore need to be green, because if they come across some of this life that is not directly controlled by the walking nest, then they might actually be at risk. So it's better to have that contingency, you know. And I imagine that sometimes those lore will help in culling some of the less desired life. But note that because I call it less desired life here, that doesn't mean that I don't desire it. Wow, that is a really strange sentence. Actually, anyway, instead of putting attention to it, yeah, it just means that it's undesirable for the walking nest. But for the world, it's all good. It's important to have that in the world because it makes the world more varied and more interesting. And it also creates more work for me, probably, but let's not worry about that for now. Okay. So yeah. Yeah, so that does mean that there is life other than that is controlled by the walking nest, which is good to establish. I had not established that before. So I won't be going over the specific mathematics that I would use to try and figure out like how far it can move, because I haven't quite figured out the properties yet of the walking nest. But yeah, and I guess I can't really go into too much depth of the whole cultivation thing. Well, actually, no, I kind of can. I just need to kind of figure out, I suppose, a sort of energy cycle, because that's what the ecology is basically going to be about primarily, I imagine. And I'm not going to be able to exhaustively figure it out. But anyway, so let's work on A7 from scratch in a sense. So A7 without any life is barren, obviously, but it is very wet. So this is major waterways. I actually have something that might show it a bit better. Yeah, let's open it in the program that I actually made it in. Let's wait for it to load. Hopefully it loads. Oh well. Maybe it'll pop up in a moment. Anyway, so yeah, it's basically a very wet region. Like, there it is. So yeah, I've been trying to make a new updated map. Okay, can I? Oh, no, that's wrong. I'm moving things I should not move. Can I undo it? There we go. Okay. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I don't think I fixed it entirely. There we go. Let's deselect all of that. Okay. So yeah, I'm currently working on getting rid of all of the, well, not getting rid of the rivers, but adding all of the rivers. As you can see, there's still a lot of stuff that is missing and such. But I'm also kind of focusing on the A7 region still, because otherwise I will get overwhelmed and such. But yeah, so as you can see, it's quite a wet region when compared to, for example, this area, which is basically entirely dry. Yeah, like as you can see, there's only a few areas where rivers actually come through. Oh. And that's because water falls over here and then goes down. Okay. But yeah, so it's a very wet region. And it's a place that is basically, so these areas will be mostly volcanic rock, with tons of erosion because there's no tectonic plate movement in this setting. There is only volcanism, which is why these volcanoes can grow so big and seem to be kind of scattered at random. And then here you've got a lot of sedimentary stuff. It's basically like the stuff that gets eroded from the volcanoes flows into the valleys and such and fills that up, so that you get, yeah, sedimentary areas. So these areas are generally a lot flatter, whereas these ones are probably more canyony and such. But I don't have a good visual image yet of how that would be, because, I mean, let me actually go to the... This has turned more into an exposition-y thing, but that's fine. That was a template, that was not an actual... Okay. Right, so yeah, here's the legend of the heights. So, as you can see, basically this would be one pixel in height, and then this would be another pixel in height, and then this would be another pixel in height. So really, there's only like 3 pixels in height, but it's spread out over such a large area that I'm not actually sure like what mountains would be like and such. I kind of feel like, yeah, so it's difficult for me to estimate what this would actually look like. And unfortunately there's not really like easy ways that I can think of to visualize this. So if anyone watching this does have some suggestions for that, that doesn't necessarily require me to spend months learning how to use a program, but where I can just, yeah, do that kind of stuff, that would be amazing. But you know, if that doesn't exist or you can find it, that's fine, of course. But if you can find it, please leave like a comment or something, or yeah, tell me at some point. Because I always want to know like what my world would actually look like, rather than just what it looks like from my mind's eye. Okay. Going back to the environment. So, yeah, basically because we're going from scratch, there's no life here, but there's just those two types of like land. So this would probably be kind of like sandy or dirt-like kind of stuff. With this, I imagine this would be more mountainous, but more like you would have kind of like mountain ranges like that, maybe, or even like just mountain ranges across the entire thing, or just canyons. It's hard to tell. And also like this volcano, like it's just constantly belching out lava. But I imagine it just kind of goes like one way, then another, then another, then another, and it'll probably often like fill up the rivers and such. So I'm going to have to work on that at some point, but I don't have an easy way of figuring that out quite yet, especially in terms of visualization, because currently I only really have 2D stuff to work with. I've been working a little bit on some 3D stuff, but I'm not confident with that at all yet, to the point that I'm not yet motivated to try out things there too much. But yeah, so barren stuff. But because it's volcanic runoff, basically, like there's new nutrients being added basically, and those are then grinded down, sent through the rivers and such. So it's probably quite nutritious for plants. I imagine this entire world probably would be to a degree. Although I will admit that I'm not entirely sure how plant nutrition works. And then besides that, you've also got an energy source in light. So where did the light go? All right, it's this tiny thing. Yeah. So we've got this all from the first episode where I showed, you know, like multicolored rain. That's what's one of the big things of A7. It's also just a relatively warm climate. I believe it's like 6 degrees or something. Just a moment. I want to show you stuff from the other from the drive, but it shows stuff that you're not supposed to see. So I'm just gonna blind you guys for a bit as I fix some stuff up. Let's see. Okay. So that actually removes that stuff. All right. Let me just double check if that maintains across thingies. Sorry for the inconvenience. I hope that the music will be at least entertaining. Okay, so it does not maintain across stuff. But anyway, I sorted out the thing that I wanted to. Okay. So I'll bring you guys back. Hello! Welcome back. Okay. So, yeah, A7 basically has like a tropical climate. There's a lot of rain. It tends to be around 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. Of course, the people in this world aren't going to use Celsius, but you know, for me, while world building, it's useful. It's got very high precipitation. Magic intensity, don't worry about that currently. It basically means how much magic enters from the sky realm. To fairly low depending. Yep. Cool. Yeah, rain is very common. Only going like a week or so. Sometimes like 3-ish weeks. So, but week I'm very rough with as just a useful metric. It's not exactly 7 days. It's like it can be from like 5 to like 10 days, something like that. Probably that's kind of what it's like in my head. And so a month is like 3 to 4 of those kinds of weeks. So yeah, the longest dry periods are going to be like 30 days or so. It's not a very it's really rainy. Which probably actually means that it would be very muddy. Without the interactions of plants. Yeah. So one of the issues would be that it's going to be very wet, which basically means that everything like washes away. There might even be like flooding and such. So that would probably be something that a creature that chooses to live here would want to affect in a way that it goes away. Well, not the rain, of course, because that's kind of important. But basically, yeah. Huh. So you probably, yeah. So some of the dangers with a lot of rain is stuff like why do I keep making accidental faces? It's basically like rock falls or like mudslides, that kind of stuff. Like basically the landscape is very unstable if it's wet. So you basically want to stabilize it. Wait a minute, actually I might have a better way of doing this. So basically I go because I don't actually know if that is going to be the solution. Cool. So very wet. One of the problems you're going to get is unstable route. And one of the solutions for that could potentially be lots of roots. Because when you've got a like unstable ground, which wants to basically fall down. Like you generally have like a slice, which then basically like rolls down and flies away. Like you'll have some sort of fault point where it'll then just reach and break and go down. This is in large part because, well, sand, as I'm sure you're well aware, is just basically a whole bunch of loose particles, primarily. Especially sand. Like, dirt also contains other things like dead roots, organic matter like fungi and all that kind of stuff. But sand especially is just a bunch of particle, like, yeah, a bunch of stuff that's just lying there. And one of the issues with that is also that a lot of it will be kind of like, it's not, for example, that. It's not long. It's like at most it's going to be like that kind of shape, but it's still going to be rolling off of each other very easily. Now, one way of preventing that is by introducing long things. So say you've got a lovely little plant here. It starts spreading its roots between all of these sand grains, because generally, like, sand gets pushed to the side, doesn't actually, you don't go straight through the sand because that is just hard. So then you basically get like these roots that kind of like, yeah, shape through it and bind it all together. And that's basically how roots stabilize soil. So if you have lots of roots, because you, for example, have like trees, and especially if they have like deep roots and sturdy roots, so that the trees themselves, you know, because if the tree, I just like drawing the water catching trees. If the tree itself has very shallow roots, well, then it might still just go along for the ride if one of these plaques just kind of like lets go. But if it has very deep roots, then it, you know, this plaque gets anchored to here, and so it can't move. So yeah, the more roots, the more stable the ground is going to be. This is in fact also one of the reasons why it like some places at roads you'll see trees built next to them, placed next to them, because the roots basically like keep the soil around it from eroding away from the rain, and so the water car won't as easily like get under the roads, causing like cracks and damage and such, I think. Wait, actually no, that aspect I am mistaken in. It's more that trees historically were built around dirt paths. So, you know, like you've got the kind of like tracks where like cars would go, but then in the middle you've got just grass and such. But yeah, you've got like tracked roads. There, people might be tempted to build trees around, so the ground is stable and doesn't necessarily get as muddy. It's sturdier. Like some of the roots even kind of form like a sturdy platform. You might have seen this in places. And it also just limits the amount of like holes and stuff that form in it. So yeah, like roots are useful. So basically, a walking nest in a very wet place would want lots of roots everywhere. So yeah, like it would probably, even though in this kind of environment you could easily just have a type of plant that just sits on the surface, because they, the plants get their energy from light, and the main source of light here is the rain, and there's plenty of rain. So if you're a lazy plant species, you can just sit on the surface and chill. Maybe anchor yourself just enough so you don't get washed away into the ocean or something like that. But yeah, so the walking nest would actually be interested in making plants with roots, or importing plants with roots, or just, yeah, doing that kind of stuff. Of course, roots do have an advantage because it allows you to have taller structures. But yeah, like the walking nest would definitely be keen on stabilizing the ground because it's big. It doesn't want to sink. So it would probably like things to have very deep roots, but also kind of like horizontally. I'm interfering with the wrong thing. Wow, ugly land. Water catcher tree. But yeah, basically, it would have wanted to have both like shallow roots, so that you have more like the ground being stabilized on the surface, so that you can easily walk on it. But it would also want it to basically like anchor the trees pretty deep, so that you don't get significant landslides and the trees themselves don't get washed away as easily. Cool. I have been going for a while now, haven't I? I mean, I'm not gonna stop quite yet. How long have I been going on for? Let's have a look. Oh yeah, 47 minutes. We're not even at the point yet where I usually am, so we've got plenty of time left. Although this has been a very distracted and tangent-heavy stream, but that's just how my brain works, unfortunately, and hopefully it doesn't bother you guys too much. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, you've got unstable ground, so a solution is lots of roots for that. Another problem is floods. When you have a lot of water coming through, especially, if it all funnels into a valley, especially if there's occasionally dry seasons, you're gonna have problems with floods, like significant. Yeah, floods are gonna be a significant danger that you just have to kind of deal with. So one potential solution. Let's zoom in here so we can make some notes. Okay, this is a thing we can do. Okay, so one possible solution is, what did I have on my mind? I suppose just drink it all. So by that I mean make as many plants drink all of the water. But I mean, that seems very naive. Like, the water still has to go somewhere. There is... I don't think that the water would evaporate all that much. Yeah, so this might. So these two are basically kind of like linked in a sense. They're fairly similar. Wait a minute. I wanna. That's a chain. Whatever. Oh wait. Chains are generally more like that. Yeah, that looks better. So yeah, like they're kind of linked in what they are trying to achieve. They're basically trying to stop water in general. But I'm not sure. I don't think that that is like it is possible in this setting. So there isn't like there is a normal water cycle, much like there is on Earth. And by water cycle, you know, it's the thing of like you've got a body of water, that water evaporates, turns into clouds, then clouds, they rain down again, and you know that all accumulates into like rivers, which then goes back into the water and evaporates again, and round she goes. But it's not as significant a part, I believe. So in the Myriad Skies, basically all matter just kind of it's it just you know, like vanishes at some point. Yeah, and that's just a natural part of the process. I had to do this because otherwise magic would just create stuff without stuff ever being removed, or stuff not being removed at an equal pace, and that would just cause problems. Also, the Sky Realm actually does more raining than the water cycle does. The Sky Realm tends to decide that, and so like new water gets added, and so if that doesn't get removed, that would be problematic naturally, because then the entire world would just flood. So like the whole making it disappear is not actually that unreasonable. But one of the problems with that is that, first of all, there needs to be a reason why plants and or animals would be able to make things disappear. I don't think that is a bit too much of a jump to justify as the walking hive doing that, or walking nest. So I think that there does need to be a reason why plants would do this naturally, so that the walking nest can, you know, like enhance it, rather than just making it out of thin air. Because like I do not really want things to just pop into existence, I suppose. No idea what's recommending me there. I might have watched it at some point. Alright, where was I? Yeah, so it needs a reason. I'm not overly fond of this being a major solution, to be honest. Like making it disappear. But it might be a part of the thing. So one of the ways of forcing it to disappear in a sense is probably through certain types of quote-unquote chemical reactions. Oh man. So you remember how Yeah, I should probably talk about this now. Should I? I don't really want to go on to another tangent, so I won't. Basically, when stuff disappears, sometimes it creates something new in its place. Which is basically one of the ways that chemical reactions work in this setting. But it uses raw magical energy to do so. It could be that these plants make, like, because there's so much water, it's such a plentiful resource, they might just use that as a type of resource to turn into other resources. So yeah, yeah, we can actually make it disappear by turning it into something else. That is actually, it would have to be something that is useful to a lot of plants and would be in a lot of plants for a lot of this water to just disappear. I'm still not over the moon about this idea, but I am warming up to it a little bit. So I think it can be part of the solution. Yeah. But not the majority of it. I think this should be like a interesting thing that kind of, yeah, gives a reason for plants to try and capture extra water and that kind of stuff. I'll have to think about this. I might come back to this, because this is an interesting idea. I've not considered this before, so I could turn that into something, but I'd have to do a bit of a think about it, and it's late. I've not had all that much sleep, to be honest. And yeah, cool. Another potential solution is just whoa, that's an ugly T. There we go. Still ugly, but yeah, water management. You know, the same way humans do it, which is basically like water flow somewhere you don't want it to. Well, you just make a canal that redirects the water where you do want it to flow, or something like that. Now, how would that work in making this happen? One way I can think of, a few things. Let's zoom in again, so we have a bit more space. So there's the beaver method, which is basically have animals that just have kind of like this weird instinct to dam up places, or yeah, so that's, I mean, dams aren't necessary, but instead of damming up, I think it would be more likely to be a case. It sounds good in in theory, but I think I ruined things again. Nope, it's just being weird. Maybe I should stop touching that. Yeah. I'm just having a think here. Because... do I need to actually... like research water management for this? I haven't even gotten to civilization yet and I'm already having to think about water management. But this is why I do these streams, so that I actually end up thinking about things that I hadn't thought about before, and so that I get motivated to do this and to actually spend dedicated time on this. Alright, so I'll just have a think about this water management thing, and I think that's going to be the last thing that I do on this specific stream. So another thought that I had was, so there's only so much kind of like two-dimensional land, but like, you know, on the surface you can only have like so much water running. But if you go under the surface, then you suddenly turn it into a 3D situation. So, like, underground rivers are probably a good idea. Now, I'm not talking about naturally generated underground rivers, of course. I'm talking about underground rivers that are created by actual life forms. Ooh, yeah, I can think of a few ways that this would be done. So one of the ways is the animal way. So basically, you have something that is good at digging. You know, it has like good digging paws and such, and has a reason to... oh, I suppose these could be combined in a sense. Oh, it could, yeah, like if there's an animal solution here, then it would kind of be, it might potentially be like aquatic life, which can dig burrows and might redirect waterways to be more beneficial to itself, in a sense. Ooh. No, that is fascinating. Yeah, so that is one possibility. Where basically it's because the material that it digs up, like if you actually want underground rivers, the material can't just be shifted like a lot of animals do, especially like worms and such. It actually has to be removed from underground so that it's not in the way anymore. Yeah. And also I imagine that some parts would also have lava tubes and stuff, but let's not worry about that at the moment. So yeah, basically they would have to dig out a significant amount of stuff. Yeah. Which in this set, oh my, underground rivers would actually be their own ecosystem because the water is what brings life and energy itself. Like it doesn't need sunlight. So we've stumbled on something pretty exciting here, I reckon. I'm pretty happy with this. Yeah, I think, yeah, this is definitely making me a lot happier than this stuff. This stuff is still going to exist to a degree, because, you know, it's still interesting enough. But underground rivers, ooh, that gets some approval from me. Especially because it can create an underground ecosystem. And if there's an underground ecosystem, that gives more incentive for animals to manipulate that environment, which means that it's easier for the walking nest to make it happen. So the walking nest might have been modifying creatures that were already you know, digging little burrows in these underground rivers, because there would have been already underground rivers, in part because, well, these volcanoes will create like lava tubes and such, because that's just the thing that happens. And eventually water enters those lava tubes, and you get underground rivers, and creatures inhabit that. And then you've got an ecosystem there, and they start burrowing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that works. And of course they wouldn't want to, like, if they dig it out in an already existing river, that just washes that stuff away, so that it goes downriver to, you know, around here, these deltas and that kind of stuff. Neat. Okay. But there's another method. And this might even be a version of like a water catching plant. So basically the idea that I'm having, yeah, there's some space here, let's just work here. It's basically that you've got plants that basically like you start off with a simple root, right? Then that root kind of like ends up being a bit hollow on the inside. You know? And eventually that root will open up. And then you suddenly got a tunnel there. Now this is beneficial to the plant actually, because well, if it can basically like channel water through itself and continuously in a sense, you know, it might grow little hair thingies that photosynthesize. But basically, you know, it has its own supply of light. And the bigger this is, the more water can flow through it, the more permanent it might be able to be. Yeah, so you might just have these plants that are basically just tubes underground, hollow tubes underground. Oh, I did not expect this session to end up in such a way. So yeah, basically you've got a plant that's basically just a bunch of hollow tubes. Like, it might branch, it might not, who knows? Yeah, and then like the water flows through there. yeah, into the and then you can just have normal roots coming out, which may eventually develop into their own kind of thing, so that you kind of have like this river system that it just develops on its own. And yeah, like wherever it lets this stuff out, because like it wants to get rid of this water as well, probably. Because holding on to it for too long, like the light stops working, and then, you know, like if there's no new water flowing in. So yeah, and that would push away like the dirt and such. And it would constantly flush out the water. They might even originally have started out as a water catching tree. Like, let's just go somewhere else for a moment. Like, you know, you just have like a normal, let's just say it's a water catching beaker plant or something like that. You know, like, here's the ground, here's the plant. And like, you know, it has kind of like this kind of situation going on. But then, you know, catching more water is useful. So it might actually develop like a bigger funnel. And then eventually it's like the water catching part is now basically below the ground. So I might as well have like little openings there too. So that, you know, water from the surface can just go in there. And I can have like a big reservoir under yeah. Or this can just become shorter and shorter. Or that might even wilt away, and then, you know, on the surface you've just kind of got this like funnel, which then leads into like this big old reservoir, which then might just be, you know, traveling horizontally or something until it comes out somewhere else. But that until it comes out somewhere else might be tricky. I mean, it might just be a case of like, you know, it just goes a very small distance downhill, and then other roots are finding like places that are downhill, and if those roots find a place that is properly downhill, then those roots might develop into like a proper canal that might turn into another scoop instead, because now it's, you know, no longer losing water, it's now gaining water. And so that's how you get like an underground waterway. And then, you know, like it might be a case that it wants some security. So if it knows that something is really downhill, it might gradually like, yeah, some of these roots might link into each other, and then who knows, these paths might stop developing, and so they might stay small, but then, yeah, like the deeper the path is, the bigger it might be. And, you know, these plants can of course die or something like that, but generally that would also create rivers underwater. And so, yeah, so now you have this three-dimensional waterway system kind of situation. So that even though like the amount of water flowing through this region is ridiculous, I think it's actually like wetter than rainforests on Earth, if I did my calculations correctly. But yeah, which would be problematic. Yeah. Well then, on that interesting path where we ended up creating a new type of species that I had not anticipated and that I'm actually quite excited about. A new group of species and a completely new environment. Oh man, this is some cool possibilities. Well, on that, I think I'm gonna say goodbye. That's gonna be the end of the stream. Yeah, I let's see how long we did for. Oh yeah, about an hour and a quarter. Longest stream yet. Because I got excited at the end. But yeah. That'll do for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. However you consume this, I'm glad to have you here. If you have any comments, feel free to comment on the video that will come out from this, or that you have been watching. And yeah, like if you have questions, suggestions, anything whatsoever, please do feel free to ask. Well, because I don't have engaging people yet, I can be very engaging, and I will do my best to be as engaging as I can in that aspect. All right then. This has been another stream of the Myriad Skies, and I wish you a good night, day, morning, or whatever it is where you are currently staying. Goodbye.